heavy duty for a moment and just trying to get my work done at the same time. Yeah. So when I start talking about monitors and how monitors work, I like to start with images from Pointillism. And if you look here at Google, if you search Google Images for Pointillism, it brings up a type of art. So just like there's a movement in art like Impressionism or Realism, there's also a movement known as Pointillism. And Pointillism was when people would create paintings by just putting little dots of color on the canvas. And so all of these images here are made just from a bunch of little dots. And in fact, if you zoom in on one of these images like that, you can see how this image was created by a bunch of dots. And so I like talking about pointillism when I began talking about monitors, because monitors also work in the same way as these paintings. So just like these images are created by a bunch of dots, of color, that is exactly the same way this image right now that you are looking at of me and Oliver. This image that you're looking at right now is created by a bunch of dots of color, and each of those little dots is known as a picture element or a pixel. A picture element or a pixel. Hi, little guy. Oh, there we go. There we go. And so that's the first term you should know about when you start learning about monitor terminology, is that there is this thing known as a picture element. It's a pixel. And the way we make up all of our images on any screen is just a combination of a whole bunch of little dots of color known as picture elements or pixels. And that's how we make up our images on a screen. And so when we talk about resolution, so for instance, if I was to go to my desktop and right-click my desktop and choose Screen Resolution, you'll see here that I've got 1920 by 1080 as my resolution. But indeed, I could choose other resolutions if I wanted to. I could choose 1600 by 900 or 1280 by 720 or 800 by 600. I'm going to leave it on high. But what those numbers represent is how many pixels wide by how many pixels high. So when we talk about screen resolution, we're talking about how many pixels wide, how many of those little dots of color left to right, how many dots of color top to bottom. So that's resolution. And the number of pixels wide by pixels high is also known as aspect ratio. So we could have different aspect ratios. And so here you see images of the different aspect ratios. Hey, little buddy. You want to come out and take a look at what's going on? Yeah, there we go. Hi. Here we see images of different pixel aspect ratios. And the traditional television aspect ratio is 4:3. And that's this one right here at the top of the screen. That's an aspect ratio of 4:3. That means for every 4 pixels wide, left to right, it goes up 3 pixels high. And then, another really common aspect ratio is 16:9. So my monitor has a 16:9 aspect ratio. And let's see if we have a 16:9 here somewhere. We've got 85:1, 16:9 right there. So that would be a 16:9 aspect ratio right there. So that's the next phrase that's good to know about. And traditional television is the 4:3 aspect ratio, and a lot of monitors today are 16:9 aspect ratio, meaning 16 pixels wide. For every 16 pixels wide, it goes up 9. You got the hiccups. The next thing to know about is the color depth, which is also known sometimes as bit depth. And color depth or bit depth is the number of zeros and ones that are used for each pixel to store the color of that pixel. So if we're making up images from dots of color, each of those dots or each of those pixels, we have to remember which color that one dot or that one pixel. For each pixel, we have to remember what that one dot or that one pixel, what its color is. And so we have to use zeros and ones to store and remember that color information. And the number of zeros and ones that we use for each pixel is known as color depth, or also bit depth. And so if you look here in Wikipedia at color depth, you can see right down here at the bottom that 1-bit color, right, would be known as monochrome. So if we have 1 bit stored for each color, right, then each pixel could be one of 2 colors because we're only storing 1 bit for each pixel. So each pixel could either be this color or that color because 1 bit could store 2 messages. And so that would be like black and white or black and green, like the old monitors. And the more bits we use for each pixel to store the color information, Gesundheit, Gesundheit, the more the more bits we use for each pixel to store the color information, the more possibilities each pixel can have in terms of what color will it be. So if we use 2 bits for each pixel, here's a question for you. If we use 2 bits for each pixel, how many possible colors could that pixel be if we have a color depth of 2 bits for each pixel? So pause the video right now and maybe try to answer that question. If each pixel is using 2 bits to store its color information, then each pixel can be one of how many possible colors? Okay, so the answer to that would be 4, because if we have 2 bits, it could store 4 different messages. And so our pixel could be, one of 4 different colors. And so if we look over here on the right at Wikipedia, we see examples of, there's a picture, an image with 1-bit color depth, right? It has a color depth of 1. And then we have a color depth of 2, 4 colors there. And then we have a color depth of 4 bits per pixel. And so we have 16 possible colors. And then if we move down, we have a color depth of 8 bits, right, per pixel. So 8 zeros and ones are being stored for every pixel on the screen. And that gives each pixel a possibility of 256 different colors. And if we use 24 bits for each pixel, then we have 16,777,216 possible colors that each pixel could be. And that's amazing. And that's also known as true color, right? So that's the color depth or bit depth. And that's really, a lot of the terminology associated with monitors, just knowing that monitors are made up of little dots of color named pixels, and that the number of pixels left to right, top to bottom is known as resolution. And we also think about that as the aspect ratio, right? Like, what is the size of the screen? What does it look like, right? So here's what 16:9 looks like, more of a letterbox movie screen. Here's what 4:3 looks like, more of a traditional television look. So that's your aspect ratio. And then the color depth or bit depth is how many zeros and ones are stored for the color for each pixel, right? For each pixel. The next good thing, which is good to know about, I'm actually going to see if I could go set this guy aside for a second. I'm going to pause the video and go see what his mom's doing, and then come back, because this is a little bit too hard to make this video and also hold this guy at the same time. Yeah, I think you might need a little hangout time. I'll be back in a flash. The next thing which it's important to know about when, looking at monitor terminology and monitors and everything like that, is that you have video cards, and video cards can be plugged into your computer. So if you have not a laptop, laptop's going to be too small, but if you have a tower, right, for your system unit, and you could open it up, then inside there might be a place where you can plug in a video card. And so we've got different video cards here, including one video card which costs $677. And if we look at that video card, what it tells us is that it gives there's a GPU inside of it. And so the GPU stands for graphics processing unit. So video cards are also sometimes known as graphic cards. And on video cards, graphic cards are graphical processing units. So it's like a CPU, central processing unit, but it's a CPU that's devoted solely to processing video images. And so if you're a video gamer, this is something that is something that's interesting to you, or if you do a lot of video production or anything that's really video intensive, getting a video card or a graphics card with a GPU, graphics processing unit, is interesting. Will be interesting to you. The last thing to know about is the different connectors that are out there for monitors. So one connector is a video graphics array connector, a VGA connector, and a VGA connector looks like this right here. But that's a VGA connector. It's kind of like the old way to connect monitors. And a new way to connect monitors, a newer way to connect monitors is a DVI, which stands for Digital Visual Interface. And it looks like that right there. That's a DVI connector. So those are two ways that monitors get connected. This is the old way, the VGA, Video Graphic Array, and this is a new way, DVI. There's one other connector which is good to know about when we're talking about, monitors, TVs, things like that, and that's HDMI. And HDMI stands for High Definition Media Input Interface. High Definition Multimedia Interface. That's what HDMI stands for. And this is what it looks like. That's an HDMI cable. So, for instance, I connect my MacBook Pro to my large television, like 55-inch television, using an HDMI cable. And my computer and my TV can connect each other with this cable right here. And then I'm able to watch Netflix or anything on my computer. I could see it on my TV screen. And HDMI is really kind of the new connector for, audio-visual componentry like stereos, TVs, things like that. So that's a little bit about monitor terminology, and you got to meet my son. So pretty cool.